A simple game of hide and seek turned into a nightmare when a little girl disappeared without a trace. Years later, her brother uncovers a mysterious locked chest, one that could finally reveal the truth and bring her back. Join me as we unravel this gripping story of loss, hope, and a family's unbreakable bond. You won't want to miss a single moment. It started like any other summer afternoon. The sky over Millstone Valley was painted in hues of lazy blue, the cicadas buzzing in waves of rhythm that melted into the rustling trees. Children's laughter echoed from backyard fences, and sunlight filtered through the canopy of oaks that lined the Moore family property. On that particular day, the Moore kids, 10-year-old Caleb and his 8-year-old sister Lucy, were playing their favorite game, hide and seek. It had been a tradition for them every summer since they were small enough to squeeze under the kitchen table together and giggle while their mother searched the house in mock surprise. Lucy had always been the better hider. She could slip into shadows like a cat, vanish behind curtains, wedge herself behind garden hedges, or even climb halfway up the old willow tree in the backyard without a sound. That afternoon, Caleb was and Lucy had darted away with a mischievous grin on her face. "You'll never find me this time," she called over her shoulder as she disappeared into the woods behind their house. Caleb grinned and covered his eyes. 1, 2, 3. He counted loudly, as always, letting his voice echo far enough to give her time. At 20, he opened his eyes and took off into the trees. It wasn't uncommon for them to play near the edge of the forest, but they both knew to stay close. Their parents had warned them about going too deep. The forest could get confusing. Paths seemed to curve when you weren't looking, and the light under the trees played tricks on your eyes. But Lucy, ever bold, liked to push the boundaries. She enjoyed the thrill of hiding just a bit farther than she should. Caleb searched high and low, calling her name, laughing at first. But as the minutes ticked by and the sun began to slide lower, his voice became edged with worry. "Lucy," he called again. "Okay, you win, come out now." Silence. He ran deeper, crashing through underbrush, spinning around. Every spot she'd ever hidden in was empty. The trees loomed darker now. Panic clawed at his chest. He retraced his steps, then widened his search. Still nothing. The woods swallowed sound and time, turning excitement into dread. When he finally ran home breathless and wild-eyed, his mother was already stepping onto the porch. "Where's your sister?" she asked with a calmness she didn't yet realize she'd lose forever. I can't find her." Caleb choked. Within an hour, half the town was out with flashlights and search dogs. Neighbors combed through brush and leaves, calling her name into the growing night. The police arrived. Helicopters scanned the forest canopy, but there were no footprints, no torn fabric, no scream, no trail. Lucy Moore had vanished, as though the trees had swallowed her whole. The days that followed were a haze of hope and heartbreak. Posters with Lucy's smiling face fluttered on lampposts. Candlelight vigils were held. The media dubbed her the vanishing girl of Millstone. The forest was searched again and again. Divers dredged the nearby creek. Psychics reached out claiming visions. None helped. Theories ran wild: abduction, animal attack, even a fall into a hidden cave. But nothing made sense. No trace of her was ever found. Her mother stopped cooking, stopped sleeping. She sat in Lucy's room for hours, whispering lullabies to empty air. Caleb blamed himself. Every time he looked at the trees, he saw the last place Lucy had smiled at him. Her father, Tom, once a quiet, steadfast man, began drinking heavily. The family cracked along the fault line of Lucy's absence, their grief growing roots in every corner of the house. Years passed, but the pain didn't fade. Lucy's room remained untouched, a shrine to a moment in time frozen by grief. Caleb, now nearly grown, stopped speaking of that day. But he never forgot. Not her laugh, not her ribbon, not the way she had vanished without a sound in the very place they had always felt safest. The forest remained, silent, ancient, and heavy with secrets. And though the world moved on, Caleb never truly did. Because somewhere deep inside him, a question echoed louder than any scream. What if she was still out there, 12 years had passed since Lucy's disappearance, and the Moore family was a shadow of what it once was. Caleb, now 22, stood taller, leaner, with the quiet intensity of someone who had grown up too fast. The playful boy who once chased laughter through sunlit woods had hardened into a man who rarely smiled. His parents had separated 3 years earlier. His mother had moved in with her sister across town, and his father, a tired recluse, rarely left the house. The weight of what had happened still lived in every corner of the old home, especially in Lucy's untouched bedroom. But it was the attic, long sealed and forgotten, that held the next piece of the mystery. One rainy afternoon in early spring, Caleb returned to the house to help his father clear out years of clutter. "We should sell," his father had said over the phone. "It's time." Caleb agreed, though a knot of unease settled in his chest as he walked through the creaking halls. Dust clung to every surface like memory, refusing to let go. The attic door groaned as he pulled it open, revealing narrow wooden steps leading upward into shadows. He hadn't been up there since he was a child. As he stepped into the dim space, the scent of mothballs and aged wood filled his lungs. The single bulb overhead flickered as he tugged the cord. Old furniture draped in sheets loomed like ghosts. Boxes of faded photographs, Christmas decorations, and forgotten toys crowded every corner. But in the far back, behind a collapsed bookshelf and a stack of water-damaged boxes, something caught his eye, a large, iron-bound chest. It was unlike anything else up there. Heavy, old, almost out of place. Curious, Caleb knelt before it. The chest was covered in a layer of thick dust, but its edges were strangely clean, as though someone had touched it recently. He brushed it off and saw strange symbols carved into the wood, ones that looked neither decorative nor familiar. A tarnished brass latch held it closed, and when he tried to lift it, it didn't budge. Locked. But what made him pause wasn't the lock. It was what was carved just beneath it. A single name, faint and nearly invisible in the gloom. Lucy. His breath caught. He leaned closer, wiping more of the dust away. It was there, unmistakably carved by hand. The letters uneven, as though etched by a child or someone in a hurry. His heart thundered in his chest. Why would her name be on a chest that he had never seen before? Who had brought it up here? And why had it been hidden? He called out for his father, but only silence answered. He turned back to the chest, eyes locked on the name. 1,000 thoughts swirled through his mind. It couldn't be coincidence. He tried the latch again, pulling, pushing, even striking in frustration. It remained unmoved. There was no keyhole, at least none he could see. But something inside him shifted, a strange certainty rising. This wasn't just a forgotten piece of junk. It meant something. Somehow, it was connected to her. The feeling that had haunted him for years, that Lucy was still out there, roared to life inside him with renewed strength. He didn't know how, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever was inside that chest, it was meant for him to find. And it was going to change everything. That night, sleep was out of the question. Caleb lay awake in his old bedroom, eyes fixed on the ceiling, the sound of rain tapping on the windows like fingers trying to get in. His thoughts circled endlessly around the chest. Lucy's name burned in his mind like a forgotten melody, remembered too suddenly. He had gone back up to the attic after dinner, flashlight in hand, studying every inch of the strange wooden box. There were no hinges, no obvious seam in the lid, and the symbols carved along the sides pulsed with a strange energy under the light. They weren't just decorative. They felt ancient, intentional, almost like a warning. And the name, her name, it was real. He had taken a photo of it with his phone, stared at it under every filter. It wasn't a trick of the light. Someone, Lucy or someone else, had carved it there. But when? And how had that chest even gotten there? His father claimed to have no memory of it. That old thing? Thought it was your grandfather's, he mumbled over whiskey. It's been up there forever. Caleb didn't believe that for a second. He'd explored every inch of the attic as a kid. That chest hadn't been there before. He was certain. Just past midnight, unable to ignore the pull, Caleb returned to the attic. The air was cold now, and the bulb above barely flickered to life. He sat before the chest, knees bent, flashlight in hand. Something compelled him to speak. "Lucy," he whispered, barely a breath. "If you're here, if you can hear me, I'm still looking." The attic went still. Even the wind outside seemed to pause. Then it happened. A sound, not loud, but enough to freeze the blood in his veins. A soft, breathy whisper. It came from inside the chest. Caleb. He jumped back, nearly tripping over a dusty box. The flashlight shook in his hand, its beam jerking wildly across the ceiling. "Hello," he called out, heart pounding. No answer, just the creak of wood, the groan of age. He swallowed hard, breath ragged. He stepped closer again. His hand hovered over the top of the chest. "Lucy," he said more firmly this time. "Was that you?" Nothing. But then, the latch. It moved. Not much. Just the smallest twitch, but enough to send a shock through his entire body. He crouched again, staring at it. His fingers reached out, hesitant, trembling, and touched the latch. It was warm, warmer than it should have been. He pulled. It gave way with a low click. The chest didn't spring open. It didn't even creak. But the seal was broken now. Caleb slowly raised the heavy lid, and the air inside released like an old breath trapped for decades. A strange scent escaped, like wildflowers and smoke. Inside, resting atop a nest of faded velvet lining, was a small leather-bound book. Nothing else. No jewelry. No trinkets. Just the book. Caleb picked it up with reverence. It was child-sized, worn at the corners, and fastened shut with a fraying ribbon the color of sunlight. Yellow, the exact shade Lucy used to wear in her hair. He untied it and opened the cover. "If you find this, I'm still alive." The words were written in Lucy's unmistakable handwriting. Loopy, childish, with tiny hearts dotting her eyes. Caleb's knees nearly buckled. His throat closed. The book trembled in his hands as he turned the page. "Please don't stop reading. I don't know how much time I have. I don't know where I am. But I remember some things now. I think they let me write this." He closed the book, overwhelmed, breathless. She was alive, or had been, at least, when she wrote it. And now the question wasn't just what had happened to Lucy. It was who, or what, had let her write this message and why. Caleb sat cross-legged on the attic floor, the silence pressing in on him like a second skin. He held the diary with both hands, afraid it might vanish if he let go. The yellow ribbon lay crumpled beside him like a shed memory. A fine dust hung in the air, lit by the dying bulb above, giving the whole attic an eerie stillness. He took a steadying breath and turned the page. The first entry was written in blue ink, shaky, rushed, but undeniably Lucy's. The handwriting hadn't changed much. It still carried that innocent roundness, though the words now bore the weight of someone who had seen too much. "If you're reading this, Caleb, I miss you so much. I don't know how long I've been gone. The days don't work the same here. There are no windows, no clocks, just shadows and whispers. But sometimes I see light, and I remember." His chest tightened. Her voice, preserved in these words, echoed louder than anything spoken. He turned the next page carefully, like peeling back time. "We were playing hide and seek. I remember that. I was behind the trees, near the edge of the woods, and I saw something, a crack in the air, like a tear in the sky. I thought it was just sunlight. I reached out to touch it, and everything changed. There was this sound like wind and thunder and breathing all at once. Then I wasn't in the woods anymore. I wasn't anywhere I knew." Caleb's pulse quickened. His fingers trembled as he followed every word, his mind struggling to picture what she meant. A crack in the air, a tear in the sky. Had she fallen somewhere? Been taken? They call it the between. It's not like Earth. It's not like heaven either. It's just in between things. There are doors, but they move. Sometimes they vanish. Sometimes they whisper. The walls are made of fog, but the fog listens. I wasn't alone at first. There were other children. Lost ones. Some had been there longer than me. They didn't talk. They just watched. And then, over time, they faded. A chill crawled down his spine. Caleb paused, absorbing the surreal horror that oozed from her words. Lucy hadn't simply run off. She had slipped through a crack in reality, or been pulled through. He didn't know which thought was worse. He turned another page. "I tried to keep count of the days, but they stopped making sense. Sometimes it felt like minutes, other times like years. But I always remembered you, Caleb. I whispered your name into the fog every night. Sometimes I thought I heard you whisper back. His eyes stung. He wiped them quickly with the back of his hand, not wanting to lose focus. Lucy had survived something no child should, but she had held on to her thoughts, to her memories, to him. Then one day, something changed. I heard a voice. Not the ones in the fog. This one was different. It called to me, gently like Mom used to. It led me to a door. The door was wooden and had your name on it. Caleb. But it was locked. I screamed. I begged. I hid it until my hands bled. And then a woman came. Not quite human. She called herself the Keeper. She said I wasn't ready, that the door would open only when you came looking. Caleb gasped, heart racing. This wasn't just a metaphor. Lucy had been trapped in a place that reacted to his actions. And now, 12 years later, something had shifted because he had come back. The last entry on the page was dated with a simple word. Now. I felt something today. A pull. The door moved. I think you're close. If you found this diary, it means the chest opened. That means you're here. Please, Caleb, don't stop. Follow the signs. Listen for the whispers. The between is waking, and I think they know you're coming. He closed the book slowly, every nerve in his body buzzing with equal parts awe and terror. Lucy was alive, or had been, until very recently, and whatever had taken her was still watching, still waiting. The between wasn't just some dream. It was real, and now it was calling him too. Morning broke with a haze that clung to the trees like a shroud. Caleb hadn't slept. He'd spent the rest of the night poring over Lucy's diary, committing every word to memory. The between, the fog, the keeper, the moving doors. It all sounded impossible, but then again, so had finding her name carved into that chest. And now, in the quiet light of day, Caleb felt the surreal heaviness of it all pressing harder than ever. He needed answers, real-world ones. If Lucy had been taken into another dimension, as insane as that sounded, there had to be clues. Something had happened that day 12 years ago. Something everyone had missed. So he started with the only thing he had left, the case files. Down in the basement, buried beneath boxes of old tax documents and water-damaged holiday decorations, Caleb found what he was looking for, his mother's memory box. It hadn't been touched in years. His hands trembled as he lifted the lid. Inside were old drawings, Lucy's kindergarten name tag, a few photos, and a thick manila envelope marked Lucy, police records. His mother must have requested everything before the case went cold. Caleb sat on the floor and began pulling out the reports. The timeline was familiar. He remembered the afternoon they lost her, how she'd asked to play hide-and-seek before dinner. He'd counted to 20, just like always. She never came out of hiding. He thought she was teasing him. He looked for her for an hour before calling his dad. Then the police. Then the volunteers. The dogs. The posters. But nothing had ever been found. Until now. One report in particular caught his attention. A statement from him, dated 2 days after Lucy vanished. I saw the trees move like they were breathing, it read. I heard her call my name, but it sounded like it came from behind the air. He blinked. He had no memory of saying that. None. Another statement from his mother described Lucy's fascination with mirrors and reflections in the weeks before her disappearance. She kept saying she saw herself wave back after she walked away, the report said. She laughed like it was a game, but it gave me chills. Caleb's breath caught in his throat. He didn't remember that either. As he kept reading, more strange details emerged. Neighbors reported lights flickering the night before. One boy claimed he'd seen a crack open in the sky and thought it was lightning. A park ranger noted an unusual fog that lingered near the woods, thick, silent, and gone by morning. Why had no one connected these things? Because they didn't make sense. And now, more disturbingly, Caleb realized he had forgotten key pieces of his own past. Was it time, trauma, or something more deliberate? He rushed back upstairs and opened the diary again, flipping to a page near the middle. I remember things Lucy had written, but they change. I used to think I was 6 when I came here. Then I was sure I was 8. Now I don't know. The between takes things. It swaps your thoughts like puzzle pieces. Some things don't belong anymore. Some never did. His stomach dropped. Could the between have been messing with his memories, too? Suddenly, he remembered something something he hadn't thought about in years. A game. He and Lucy had made it up. Echoes, they called it. They'd stand back to back and whisper words, and the other had to repeat them exactly. It was their secret sibling game. No one else knew about it. But last night, when he whispered her name into the attic air, why had he whispered it? Why had he even thought to? Had she whispered first? Was he echo hers? The lines between memory and reality were blurring fast, and Caleb now saw the pattern. Lucy's disappearance hadn't just taken her away. It had begun unweaving everything, and he was only just starting to see how deep the unraveling went. The forest hadn't changed. At least, that's what Caleb told himself as he stepped past the last row of fence posts behind the house, the morning sun barely cutting through the overgrowth. The woods still loomed like they had when he was 10, tall, tangled, secretive. But there was something different now, something just beneath the surface. A silence too thick, a chill that didn't match the season. He had avoided this place for 12 years. But Lucy's words in the diary wouldn't let him rest. I was behind the trees near the edge of the woods. I saw a crack in the air. Caleb moved slowly, taking each step with the cautious reverence of someone walking across sacred ground. His fingers brushed against the bark of familiar trees, their rough skin cool under his touch. He stopped beside the old oak, the one he used to count against during hide-and-seek. He ran his hand down its trunk, the carved numbers from their childhood still faintly visible. 1, 2, 3. His chest tightened. This was the last place he'd seen Lucy. He knelt and scanned the forest floor. Dirt, roots, fallen leaves. But something shimmered in the sunlight a few feet away. He crawled toward it and brushed away a layer of pine needles. A glass marble. He held it up. Inside, a swirl of blue and gold danced like a captured storm. It was one of Lucy's. He remembered her obsession with collecting marbles and naming them after stars. This one had been Orion, but looked brand new, clean, untouched by time. His pulse quickened. He stood and scanned the woods, moving deeper. After 20 yards, the air began to feel off. The wind had stopped. Even the birds were silent. Then he heard it, a sound that didn't belong in the world as he knew it. It wasn't a voice. Not exactly. More like a hum. Soft, low, pulsing just at the edge of perception. His feet carried him toward it before his brain had time to protest. And then he saw it. A tree, taller than the rest, its bark a shade darker, its roots curling above the ground like grasping fingers. At its base, there was a hollow, deep and unnaturally black. Caleb crouched down. Inside, carved into the wood with clean, straight lines, was a symbol, a spiral. Small, perfect. It spun as he looked at it. Not physically, but in his mind. It pulled at his memory. His breath hitched. He'd seen that spiral before, in the diary, drawn in the margin beside Lucy's note about the keeper. He pulled the book from his backpack and flipped through quickly, hands shaking. There was a perfect match. She had drawn it over and over. Some pages had it scratched in hurried strokes, others traced with obsessive care. Beneath one, she'd written, "The door turns when the spiral aligns." His heart thundered. This place, this symbol, was a marker, a key, maybe even an entrance. Suddenly, the wind returned, sharp and cold. The trees groaned. The hum faded. Caleb backed away from the hollow, eyes darting through the forest. A low branch snapped behind him. He spun. Nothing. But his instinct screamed. He shoved the diary back into his bag and ran. Not just from the tree, but from whatever had started watching him the moment he stepped into this place. He didn't stop until he burst out into the clearing behind his house, lungs burning, legs shaking. Clutched in his fist was the marble. Orion. Proof that Lucy had been there. Recently. Proof that the forest still held pieces of her. And whatever had taken her had never really let go. That night, Caleb lay awake, the marble clutched tightly in his hand, as if it were the last piece of Lucy's presence in the world. The spiral symbol from the forest haunted his mind. Its perfect, smooth curves seemed to pulse beneath his skin, whispering secrets only he could hear. The diary had spoken of doors, doors that moved, doors that appeared and vanished. And now, Caleb was desperate to see one for himself. He returned to the attic, the only place where silence reigned uninterrupted by the world's clamor. The weak bulb overhead flickered as he spread out the diary on the floor once again. He turned to the pages filled with drawings of spirals and notes about the keeper and the between. His fingers trembled as he traced the symbol with careful reverence. Suddenly, the marble slipped from his hand and rolled toward the corner of the room. Caleb chased it, his bare feet barely making a sound on the wooden floorboards. It stopped beside the far wall, a plain, unremarkable surface that had never held any meaning before. He crouched down, peering closely, and then a faint shimmer caught his eye, barely visible, like a heat wave on a hot day. The surface of the wall seemed to ripple, just slightly, as though the air itself was bending. Caleb's breath hitched. Could this be the door Lucy wrote about? He touched the wall lightly with his fingertips. At first, nothing happened. Then, as his skin brushed against the rough paint, a subtle vibration ran up his arm. The shimmer intensified, the ripples spreading outward like the surface of a disturbed pond. The spiral. His mind raced back to the symbol. He closed his eyes and pictured it, how the spiral turned and turned, unlocking mysteries in its path. With growing courage, Caleb pressed his palm flat against the wall and began to rotate it, imagining the spiral's infinite loop turning beneath his hand. At first, the wall resisted, cold and solid. But slowly, imperceptibly, the shimmering grew stronger, and the surface began to warp and bend. A soft click echoed through the attic. Caleb pulled back in surprise. The wall in front of him shimmered like a heat mirage, then blurred. Then, suddenly, the surface gave way. A door. Not a physical door made of wood or metal, but a thin, glowing outline framed in soft blue light. It hovered, semi-transparent, hovering a few inches from the wall. Beyond the door was darkness, deeper and more endless than the attic shadows. Caleb's heart pounded wildly. Every instinct screamed for him to run, but every fiber of his being pulled him closer. The diary had warned him. The door would open only when he came looking. And now it was here. He reached out, a trembling hand. The air beyond the door felt cold, like a sudden drop in temperature that seeped into his bones. His fingertips brushed the glowing outline. The door shuddered, as if breathing alive. He swallowed hard and stepped forward. For a moment, the attic disappeared. The floor beneath him vanished like mist, and he felt himself falling, not down, but sideways, weightless, drifting through an endless void. Then a flash of light, and he landed on soft ground. The world around him was unfamiliar, a fog-shrouded forest much like the one behind his house, but everything was distorted. Colors muted, shadows twisting unnaturally. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, and something else, something electric and alive. He was in the between. Caleb looked back at the door. It shimmered faintly, a lifeline between here and there. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. He had crossed the threshold. For Lucy, for the truth, and whatever waited beyond. Caleb knew this was only the beginning. Caleb's breath hung in the cold air, like fragile smoke, as he stepped deeper into the between, the fog swirling around him in ghostly tendrils. The forest here was both familiar and alien. The trees gnarled into impossible shapes, their branches twisting like arthritic fingers reaching out to touch the unseen. Shadows moved in the periphery, shifting but never quite taking form. He gripped the marble tightly in his pocket, a small anchor to the world he'd left behind. Then, from a mist, a figure emerged. Tall, cloaked, silent. The keeper. Caleb's heart thundered. The stories Lucy wrote in her diary spoke of this entity, a guardian, a warden, or maybe a jailer of the between. Someone who watched over the doorways, the cracks between worlds. A being not quite human, not quite spirit. The keeper's face was hidden beneath a hood, but Caleb felt the weight of its gaze pierce through the fog, settling on him like an accusation. "Why have you come?" The voice was low, echoing strangely, as if spoken from deep within the earth itself. Caleb swallowed, steadying his voice. "I'm looking for my sister, Lucy." The keeper regarded him silently for a moment, then spoke again. Many come seeking. Few are ready to face the cost. Caleb's grip tightened. I don't care about the cost. I need to find her. She's been lost here for too long. The keeper shifted slightly, the hood pulling back to reveal a face, both young and ancient, with eyes like swirling galaxies. The Between is a place of change. Time folds, memories twist, and reality bends. Your sister did not just disappear. She crossed over. And crossing over is never without consequence. Caleb's mind reeled. What happened to her? Where is she now? The keeper's gaze softened, but it carried an edge of sorrow. She's trapped, but not lost. The Between holds her in its weave, caught between moments and places. But the door you found, it nodded toward the faint outline glowing in the mist, is a gateway. It could bring her back, but only if you understand the rules. Rules? Caleb echoed, desperation creeping into his voice. Yes, the Between is not a place you enter lightly. It takes pieces of those who wander here, memories, time, sometimes the self. It rearranges reality like a puzzle. To save your sister, you must navigate the shifting paths and face what you have forgotten. Caleb's chest tightened. What do I have to face? The keeper's gaze pierced him. Your own memories, the truths you hide, even from yourself. Suddenly, the mist thickened, swirling faster until Caleb could barely see. Shapes formed, images from his past, his childhood, moments he had buried deep. Faces smiled, laughed, then faded into shadows. The echoes of his own memories danced around him, teasing, confusing. Remember, the keeper whispered, only by reclaiming what is lost within you can you unlock the path to her. Caleb nodded, steeling himself. He knew this journey was more than just finding Lucy. It was about facing himself, the pain, the gaps in his mind, and the truth that had been hidden beneath years of silence. The keeper stepped back into the fog, fading until only the echo of its voice remained. Time is not your enemy here, but it is a fickle friend. Choose your steps wisely. Caleb was alone again in the mist, but the weight of those words settled over him like a challenge and a promise. He was ready. For Lucy. For the truth. For the Between. Caleb stood alone as the keeper's voice faded into the mist, the thick fog swirling relentlessly around him, cloaking the world in a shifting veil of gray. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant rustle of unseen leaves and the soft thudding of his own heartbeat. He knew, deep inside, that this place was no ordinary forest. The Between was a maze, not of paths and trees, but of memories, emotions, and forgotten truths. And if he hoped to find Lucy, he would have to navigate it all. Taking a cautious step forward, Caleb found the fog parting slightly, revealing a narrow trail lined with faintly glowing stones. Each stone pulsed softly with light, illuminating fragments of images embedded within their surfaces, fleeting moments from his own past. A little girl laughing in the sunlight. A family dinner filled with warmth. The empty chair Lucy once sat in. His breath caught. He realized the stones weren't just lighting his way, they were pieces of his memory, scattered like breadcrumbs. And the path itself twisted and turned, warping with every step, as if the labyrinth responded to his thoughts and fears. Caleb hesitated. His mind reeled with memories both beautiful and painful, some he'd tried to bury for years. The day Lucy vanished, the arguments that followed between his parents, the silence that settled over their home like a suffocating fog. He knew that to move forward, he had to face them all. The first stone glowed brighter as he stepped closer. An image flickered to life, a vivid scene of Lucy playing hide-and-seek in their backyard, her laughter ringing through the air. Caleb's throat tightened as he remembered the last time he saw her, hiding behind the big oak tree. The moment felt so clear, so close. But then the trail forked. Two paths stretched out before him. One bathed in warm light, the other shadowed and cold. The choice was instinctive yet agonizing. Caleb took the path of light first, stepping into memories of happiness, birthday parties, holidays, the innocence of childhood. Each memory was a bittersweet reminder of what had been lost, but also a source of strength. As he walked, he felt warmth returning to his heart, like a slow thaw after a long winter. But the path soon narrowed, the light dimming until it vanished entirely. Caleb was plunged into darkness, the ground beneath him shifting like quicksand. Then came the whispers, soft voices calling his name, echoing through the void. They were memories, too, the moments he wished he could forget, the fights he blamed himself for, the guilt of leaving Lucy alone, the lies he told to keep the pain at bay. Caleb clenched his fists, his legs trembling. This was the true test, the part of the labyrinth where the past threatened to consume him. But he pushed on. With every step, the shadows pulled away, revealing shards of truth. Faces from his past, friends, family, even himself, appeared, each offering fragments of understanding. Slowly, the mist began to lift, the stones glowing brighter. The two paths converged again at a clearing where a solitary tree stood, its branches stretched wide, as if reaching for the sky. At the base of the tree, Caleb found a small, weathered box, locked tight, just like the one his mother had found years ago. His fingers trembled as he reached out. Inside, he hoped to find more than just answers. He hoped to find Lucy. The labyrinth of memories was not just a maze of pain and regret. It was a journey of healing. And Caleb knew he was one step closer to the truth. Caleb's hands hovered over the weathered box beneath the ancient tree, the air around him thick with anticipation and unease. The labyrinth had tested him with memories, tender and painful alike. And now, at this quiet clearing, the answers seemed within reach. But the box was locked tight, stubborn, and impenetrable, much like the secrets that had long surrounded Lucy's disappearance. He examined the box carefully. The wood was cracked and worn, etched with faint spirals, the same symbol that had haunted his dreams and guided him through the between. Caleb's fingers traced the carvings, feeling the grooves as if they held a secret language. There had to be a key, but where? He looked around the clearing, eyes scanning every shadow, every root and stone. Then, his gaze fell upon a peculiar glint nestled among the tree's roots. Kneeling, he reached down and pulled out a small, rusted key, its surface tarnished but unmistakably shaped to fit the box. Caleb's heart raced as he inserted the key into the lock. It fit perfectly, turning with a satisfying click. The lid creaked open, revealing a bundle of papers wrapped carefully in oilcloth. Inside were letters, photographs, and a small, intricately carved pendant, the same spiral shape he had seen everywhere in between. The letters were addressed to Lucy, written in his mother's handwriting, but filled with cryptic warnings and confessions. The photograph showed a younger Lucy smiling in places Caleb didn't recognize. Strange landscapes bathed in eerie light, places beyond the ordinary world. One letter caught Caleb's eye. It spoke of a secret the family had kept for generations, a hidden connection to the between, and a burden passed down through bloodlines. It warned that Lucy had crossed into this realm not by accident, but by choice, drawn by forces Caleb barely understood. His mind reeled. Had Lucy known more than she ever told? Had she willingly stepped into the unknown? The pendant glowed faintly in his palm, pulsing like a heartbeat. Caleb felt its warmth seep into his skin, a comforting reminder that Lucy's presence was still close. Then a whisper echoed through the clearing, the same voice he had heard from the keeper. The key is not only to the box, but to yourself. Caleb looked up, the weight of that statement settling heavily on his shoulders. The labyrinth was more than just memories. It was about unlocking hidden parts of his own soul, confronting the fears and truths he had buried deep inside. He gathered the papers and pendant carefully and stood, determination burning brighter than ever. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with shadows and challenges. But Caleb knew he held the key, both literal and figurative, to finding Lucy and bringing her home. With a deep breath, he stepped back into the fog, ready to face whatever the between would throw at him next. As Caleb ventured deeper into the between, The comforting warmth of the pendant faded into an eerie chill that seemed to seep from the very fog itself. The further he walked, the heavier the atmosphere became, thick with uncertainty and the intangible weight of shadows that clung not just to the landscape, but to his very thoughts. The labyrinth wasn't just a test of memory. It was a crucible for trust, both in others and himself. The letters he carried whispered troubling questions in his mind. If Lucy had crossed over by choice, what had she found on the other side? Was she truly trapped, or had she become part of the between itself? And most haunting of all, could the family secret his mother hinted at hold darker truths? Perhaps someone in their family had played a part in her disappearance. Was there a betrayal he had never known? These doubts gnawed at Caleb, growing like shadows, stretching long and cold. As he walked, the mist thickened, and vague shapes emerged, blurred faces that morphed and shifted with every glance. He could hear faint voices, some familiar, some foreign, calling out his name with sorrow, anger, or warning. Were they echoes of his past, or illusions meant to trap him in fear? He stumbled, nearly falling, as a sudden chill ran down his spine. Caleb stopped and forced himself to breathe deeply, steadying his racing mind. He knew this place thrived on doubt and fear, using them as shackles to bind the soul. But giving in now meant losing Lucy forever. At the edge of a shadowed glade, a figure appeared, shrouded in darkness, its face obscured. Caleb's heart leapt. Was an ally, or another trick of the between? Why do you hesitate? The figure whispered, voice smooth and cold. Is it not better to forget? To let go? Caleb shook his head, his voice firm. No, I will find Lucy, no matter what. The shadow recoiled, then smiled faintly. Beware the ones you trust. Not all who seek to help do so with pure hearts. The warning echoed through the trees, embedding itself in Caleb's mind. He realized that beyond facing the maze of memories, he must also navigate the web of deception. Old family secrets, hidden motives, perhaps even enemies cloaked as friends. With renewed resolve, Caleb tightened his grip on the pendant. The path ahead was darker than ever, but surrender was not an option. Doubt would be his greatest enemy, but it would not win. He stepped forward, ready to confront the shadows, both outside and within. The fog seemed to grow thicker as Caleb pressed forward, each step heavier than the last. The pendant hung around his neck, a faint warmth against the cold that gripped his heart. The shadows of doubt still clung to him, but now they were joined by a new, sharper pain, a sense of betrayal that began to unravel the fragile thread of trust he had held onto all his life. As he walked, images flickered through the mist, faces from his childhood, moments he had long forgotten or refused to remember. Then suddenly, one vision pierced through the haze with blinding clarity. His father, speaking in hushed tones with a stranger in a darkened room. The conversation was heavy with urgency and fear, but the words were unmistakable. They know about Lucy. We have to keep her disappearance quiet. It's for the family's sake. Caleb's breath caught. Was his father hiding something? Had the family's secrets run deeper than he ever suspected? The protective facade shattered, replaced by a flood of painful questions. Then another memory surfaced. His mother's furtive glances, her whispered warnings in the letters. She had feared someone close, someone she once trusted. Could that someone be his own father? Determined to uncover the truth, Caleb pushed through the fog until he reached an abandoned cabin, the same one from the photographs in the box. Inside, dust motes danced in the dim light, filtering through broken windows. On a cracked wooden table lay a worn journal, its pages yellowed but intact. Flipping through, Caleb found entries that revealed a dark family secret, a pact made long ago with forces beyond understanding. A bargain sealed to protect their bloodline, but at a terrible cost. Lucy's disappearance was not an accident. It was a consequence of that pact. The journal's final pages hinted at betrayal, naming a family member who had turned their back on Lucy, condemning her to the between. The weight of the revelation pressed down on Caleb like a storm. He sank to the floor, the truth burning in his mind. The person who should have protected Lucy was the one who had betrayed her. Tears blurred his vision, but beneath the pain, a fierce resolve began to burn. Caleb would not let betrayal define their story. He would fight to rescue Lucy and break the curse that had haunted his family for generations. Rising, he clasped the pendant tighter and stepped back into the fog, the path ahead darker but clearer. The past had been revealed, but the future was still his to shape. Caleb emerged from the abandoned cabin into the thick, swirling fog of the between, the weight of his family's betrayal still pressing heavily on his chest. He clutched the worn journal close, its secrets etched deep into his mind. Yet, amid the shadows of doubt and the bitterness of deception, a flicker of hope began to grow, a hope that he was not alone in this perilous journey. As he moved cautiously forward, the mist parted momentarily to reveal a figure standing silently beneath the skeletal branches of a gnarled tree. The figure was slender, cloaked in a tattered shawl, with eyes that shimmered like distant stars, eyes filled with wisdom, sorrow, and quiet strength. Caleb instinctively stepped back, wary but curious. "Who are you?" Caleb called out, voice trembling but firm. The figure smiled gently, a warmth radiating from their presence. "I am Alara," she said softly, "a wanderer of the between, a guardian of lost souls. I have watched you from afar, Caleb. Your heart is pure, your resolve unwavering." Caleb's heart quickened. After all the shadows and lies, this stranger felt like a beacon of light. "Can you help me find Lucy?" he asked, hope lacing his words. Alara nodded. "I know the paths, the hidden doorways, and the traps set by the between. But this realm is treacherous. Many have entered and never returned. You will need more than courage. You will need guidance and allies." She extended a hand, and Caleb hesitated before taking it, feeling an unexpected surge of strength and calm wash over him. Alara's voice grew serious. "Your family's past binds Lucy here, but the key to her freedom lies beyond betrayal. Together, we can unravel the curse." Caleb shared the journal with her, watching as her eyes scanned the faded pages with quiet understanding. "This pact, it's older than time itself, but there's a way to break it. A ritual, a test of faith and sacrifice." The promise of a way out ignited a fierce determination within Caleb. He no longer felt isolated or lost. With Alara by his side, the labyrinth of memories and shadows seemed less daunting. As they ventured deeper into the mist, Caleb realized that sometimes the greatest strength came from trusting others, even when the path ahead was uncertain. Together, they would face the Between's darkest secrets and fight for Lucy's return. The fog around them pulsed faintly as Caleb and Alara made their way to a clearing deep within the Between, a place where the mist thinned and a soft, ethereal glow bathed the twisted roots and ancient stones. Alara explained that this was the site where the ritual to break the family curse must be performed, a ceremony woven into the very fabric of the realm, requiring faith, courage, and a sacrifice not yet revealed. Caleb's heart hammered with anticipation and trepidation. Holding the pendant tightly, he listened carefully as Alara recited the ancient incantations. The words seemed to resonate within him, stirring memories long buried and emotions that surged like tides. It was as if the ritual was unlocking not only the secrets of the Between, but also the depths of his own soul. The clearing shimmered with light as they prepared the altar, an arrangement of crystals, candles, and symbols carved from the bark of the oldest trees. Alara handed Caleb a small vial of luminescent liquid, explaining that it contained the essence of hope, distilled from the purest moments of love and loss. As Caleb poured the liquid onto the altar, a chorus of whispered voices surrounded them, voices of those lost, of those who had fought before him, and of Lucy herself, faint but unmistakable. The pendant began to glow brighter, pulsing with a rhythm that matched Caleb's heartbeat. Alara instructed Caleb to close his eyes and focus on the light within him. He felt a warmth spreading through his body, a comforting embrace that banished the cold shadows of doubt and betrayal. Then came the sacrifice, a moment of letting go, of releasing his deepest fears and regrets into the light. With trembling hands, Caleb spoke aloud the vow to protect Lucy, to break the curse that had trapped her, and to forgive those who had faltered, even if it meant forgiving his own father. The clearing responded with a surge of energy, a radiant wave that swept through the between, tearing at the veil that had bound Lucy for so long. Suddenly, the pendant's glow exploded into brilliant light, enveloping Caleb and Alara. The fog lifted momentarily, revealing a path, a narrow, winding trail of shimmering light leading toward the heart of the realm where Lucy waited. Caleb opened his eyes, feeling renewed and more determined than ever. The ritual had not only illuminated the way, but had awakened something powerful within him: hope. Together, Caleb and Alara stepped forward onto the glowing path, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The journey was far from over, but the light now guided their steps, cutting through the darkness and drawing them closer to Lucy's freedom. The glowing path led Caleb and Alara deeper into the between, twisting and turning through surreal landscapes that seemed to shift and breathe with a life of their own. Each step brought Caleb closer to Lucy, yet the maze was not done testing him. The shadows lingered at the edges of his vision, and whispers of fear tried to pull him away from the light. But Caleb's spirit was stronger now. The ritual's glow still pulsed within the pendant at his chest, a constant reminder of the hope and love that fueled his journey. Alara walked silently beside him, her presence steady and reassuring. Together, they navigated the maze's final challenge, the heart of the maze, a vast chamber where memories, truths, and illusions collided. As they entered, the walls seemed to ripple, revealing fragments of Caleb's past. Childhood laughter with Lucy, moments of joy and innocence, but also flashes of his parents' secrets and the betrayal he had uncovered. The maze was forcing him to confront everything at once: his fears, his pain, and his hope. In the center of the chamber stood a massive, ancient tree, its branches sprawling toward the fogged ceiling, roots twisting like the tangled memories themselves. And beneath its roots, a faint glow, the unmistakable shimmer of Lucy's pendant. Caleb knelt, reaching toward the light, but the maze wasn't finished. A figure emerged from the shadows, his father, eyes filled with regret and sorrow. "I never wanted this for you or Lucy," his father said quietly. "The pact was made out of fear, to protect us all, but it cost everything." Caleb's heart pounded. This confrontation was inevitable, the truth laid bare between them. "Why didn't you tell me?" Caleb demanded. "Why let her suffer alone?" His father's voice broke. "I was afraid of losing you both. But it's time to make it right." With tears streaming down his face, Caleb took his father's hand. In that moment, the maze shifted, the shadows retreating as the tree's glow grew brighter. Together, they reached beneath the roots and lifted the shimmering chest containing Lucy's essence. Caleb felt a surge of power. The bond of family, love, and forgiveness had begun to unravel the curse. As the chamber filled with light, Caleb whispered Lucy's name, knowing their reunion was close. The heart of the maze had been conquered, but the final step still awaited. The light flooding the chamber gently dimmed as Caleb and his father carefully lifted the small, locked chest nestled beneath the ancient tree's roots. The air was thick with anticipation, the weight of years of pain and mystery finally reaching its turning point. Caleb's heart raced with hope and fear all at once. Hope that Lucy was still out there, waiting, and fear of what might lie within the chest. Alara stood quietly by, her eyes shimmering with empathy and determination. "This chest holds her essence," she explained softly. "Not her physical body, but her spirit, the part trapped between worlds. To bring her back, we must break the final seal." Caleb nodded, gripping the pendant tightly. The pendant's light pulsed in response, as if sensing the significance of the moment. Around them, the between seemed to hold its breath, the swirling mists momentarily still. His father stepped forward hesitantly, producing a small key from within his coat pocket, a key he had kept hidden for years, a symbol of his regret and the family's darkest secret. With trembling hands, he inserted it into the chest lock. As the lock clicked open, a soft, glowing mist escaped from the chest, swirling upwards like a gentle breeze. The mist began to coalesce into a delicate, shimmering figure, Lucy. Her eyes were closed, her face peaceful but pale, as if caught in a deep slumber. Caleb's voice trembled with emotion as he reached out. "Lucy, it's me. I'm here." Slowly, her eyes fluttered open, and recognition sparked in their depths. The light in her gaze was faint but growing stronger by the second. The mist around her shimmered brighter, and with a sudden rush, Lucy's spirit fully emerged from the chest, taking solid form. She blinked, taking in the strange but familiar surroundings. Tears streamed down Caleb's face as he embraced his sister. The years of longing and unanswered questions melted away in that moment of reunion. Lucy's smile was soft but radiant, proof that hope had endured even through the darkest of times. Alara smiled, knowing their mission was nearly complete. But as the siblings held each other, a low rumble echoed through the chamber. The forces that had trapped Lucy were awakening, refusing to relinquish their hold so easily. Caleb tightened his grip on Lucy's hand. "We're not done yet," he whispered. "But together, we can face anything." With newfound strength, they prepared to confront the final challenge, the fight for Lucy's freedom and their family's redemption. As Lucy's figure solidified, the tranquil glow that had filled the chamber shifted suddenly. The mists thickened and darkened, swirling violently as an ominous presence emerged from the shadows, the ancient force that had bound Lucy in the between for so many years. It was not merely a place, but a malevolent spirit, a guardian of the curse, determined to keep her captive. Caleb tightened his grip on Lucy's hand, heart pounding fiercely. He stood side by side with his father and Alara, who prepared to defend them with a calm yet fierce resolve. The chamber trembled under the weight of the looming threat, and Caleb knew this moment was the true test of all they had endured. The spirit's voice echoed through the chamber like a cold wind, mocking their attempts to break the curse. "You think your love and hope can undo what was sealed in blood. This is not a game, but a bond forged in darkness." But Caleb's voice rang out clear and unwavering. "No curse can hold us when family stands united. Lucy is coming home." Alara stepped forward, chanting the ancient words she had learned, weaving light and protection around them. Caleb held the glowing pendant high, its radiant energy clashing against the shadowy force. The battle was both physical and spiritual, a clash of light and dark, faith and fear. The spirit lashed out, tendrils of shadow curling towards Lucy, attempting to pull her back into the depths. Caleb shielded her with his own body, feeling the burning sting of darkness as it grazed his skin, but refusing to falter. His father joined the fight, summoning strength from the remorse and love that had fueled his confession. Together, they channeled the power of the ritual and the bond of their family, pushing back the darkness inch by inch. The chamber brightened with every heartbeat, the light growing stronger until the shadows screamed in defeat, dissipating into nothingness. The oppressive weight lifted, leaving a calm stillness in its place. Lucy stood fully free, tears of relief and gratitude streaming down her face. Caleb embraced her tightly, the years of pain finally washing away in their reunion. "We did it," Lucy whispered, her voice fragile but hopeful. Caleb smiled through his own tears. "Together we broke the curse." Alara nodded with a gentle smile. "The between has lost its hold. Your family's love has rewritten fate." As they stepped from the chamber, the mist parted, revealing a path back to the world they had nearly lost. The final confrontation had tested their strength, but it had also healed old wounds and forged unbreakable bonds. Their journey was complete, not just in rescuing Lucy, but in reclaiming the love and trust that had been hidden in the shadows for far too long. The first rays of dawn filtered gently through the trees as Caleb, Lucy, Alara, and his father stepped out of the between, leaving behind the shadows and echoes of the past. The air was crisp and alive with possibility, a world transformed by their courage and unbreakable bond. For the first time in years, Caleb felt a deep, unshakable peace settle within him. Lucy, now fully free and restored, breathed deeply, savoring the warmth of the sunlight on her skin. The years lost to the curse could never be returned, but the future stretched wide before them, full of hope and new beginnings. Caleb looked at his sister, her smile radiant and her eyes bright with life, and felt a surge of gratitude that words could not capture. The ache of the past had been replaced by the promise of family healed and love rekindled. His father, standing beside them, no longer burdened by secrets and regrets, met Caleb's gaze with a quiet nod. Forgiveness had paved their way forward, and though the scars would remain, they would no longer define them. Alara, who had guided them through the darkest realms, now stood as a friend and guardian, her mission fulfilled but her heart forever intertwined with theirs. As they walked back toward the village, the townspeople emerged from their homes, eyes wide with awe and relief. The story of Lucy's disappearance had become a legend, a shadow over the community's heart, but now that shadow was lifted. Cheers and tears of joy greeted the family's return. Caleb knew this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, healing wounds, rebuilding trust, and embracing the future, but the strength forged in the between would carry them through. That night, as the family gathered around a warm fire, laughter and stories filling the air, Caleb glanced at the pendant glowing softly on his chest. It was a reminder of the journey they had endured and the light that love had brought to even the darkest places. The past no longer held power over them. Together, they had rewritten their story, turning pain into hope, loss into reunion, and fear into courage. A new dawn had arrived, not just for Lucy and Caleb, but for all of them. And as the stars twinkled above, they knew their family would never be broken again. Thank you so much for joining me on this unforgettable journey, a tale of loss, courage, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Lucy's story reminds us that even in the darkest moments, hope can shine through, and love has the power to conquer any shadow. If this story touched your heart or sparked your curiosity, please don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings. And if you want to dive into more captivating stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an adventure. Together, let's explore the mysteries of life, one story at a time. Until next time, stay curious and keep believing in the magic of family.